April of last year, Cruzeiro SAF, which is like the Cruzeiro's soccer department, broken off from the athletic association. Like, you know how Brazilian soccer teams work. Usually it's like, it's an athletic club. It's like a social recreational club that has a football department and other sports departments, like not just football, but basketball, volleyball, blah, blah, blah.
Kind of like a local YMCA that just became really big.
It became huge, yeah. Their football department became really huge, professionalized, blah, blah, blah.
Right, and then they have like volleyball and basketball teams as well.
Cruzeiro got into crazy debt. We won't get into that now, but what they did to kind of like help that, they broke off their football department as part of new laws and regulations that came out in Brazil. They broke apart the football department, and now the football department is its own entity. Now it's owned by an actual like person, right? Like like North American sports now. We have this kind of coming up more and more in Brazilian sports.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
who owns it? So
originally, the first owner was Ronaldo, like Fenomeno, the guy who started his career in Cruzeiro. And in April of last year, was sold by Ronaldo to a guy named Pedro Lourenço, who is a billionaire supermarket magnate. Like, he owns Supermercados BH.
Right, yeah. Cool.
And a huge Cruzeiro fan, like lifelong huge Cruzeiro fan.
That's awesome.
Apparently he has lots of money, like not only because of, you know, the supermarkets, but the media is portraying it, Cruzeiro is portraying it, in all kind of outlets it's portrayed that like this guy is loaded and he's ready to spend all his money like on Cruzeiro, right? So,
nice.
On a side, I'm pretty sure this angered the players who signed under Ronaldo. Like, Ronaldo was more like austere and I guess stingy in how he spent his money, right? So he wasn't like splashing cash on big stars. He was trying to find those like diamond in the rough or those kind of cheaper sort of options, right?
Right, the value picks.
Exactly, and I think there's a break in the team, kind of what happened there. One of those players, I think, is Matheus Pereira, who's one of Cruzeiro's main players. We'll get more to him later. Anyways, he started to very aggressively like improve the team. He bought the team in April. That's more or less mid-season, and the mid-season transfer window is like June, July. So in that mid-season transfer window, he splashed cash. Like I said, he came in like roaring, right? Raring to go. They signed two guys who are, you know, pretty solid Brazilian pieces that had just gone to Europe, Matheus Henrique and Wallace. And they came in mid-season and like, you know, they were touted to like change the team. Right?
They came back from Europe?
They came back from Europe, yeah.
Nice.
They weren't Cruzeiro players originally, but they were playing in Europe, and then they came, like Cruzeiro brought them back and spent like, I think 7 to 8 million euros on each. Like, you know, spent
pretty good
money, right? The team doesn't immediately gel mid-season with 7 new pieces. Big shocker. Like, no team does. 7 new pieces of 11 possible players.
Yeah.
And when that happens, they fire their coach at the time, Fernando Seabra, who, in my opinion, was a very knowledgeable coach. He had, like, good tactics. He knew how to, like, speak about soccer. You could see in interviews, like, he had this kind of mentality, this way of seeing football, right? Seeing the pitch. He adapted fairly well. Like, he didn't always make the right decisions, but he was able to adapt teams. Like, all right, cool, this week we're facing this team at home. Like, they're a smaller team, so they're probably going to play more closed. He was able to get a lot out of the players, and in my opinion, like, make the team more than just the sum of its parts. You're seeing right now, like, the highlights or the goals that Cruzeiro scored last season, 2024, on the screen, if you're watching the screen. I don't think you are, anyways. People who are watching are seeing that.
Nice.
So he knew how to get, you know, more out of players, make them kind of more of a sum of their parts. But I think ultimately he wasn't really able to handle, like, that was his downfall, is that he wasn't really able to handle the egos that started coming in with those bigger contracts. Like, you know, a guy coming in and saying, like, you know, making double what your best player is making. Like, it's an interesting, or at least a very unique, let's say, dynamic.
He was like, I was just in Europe. Like,
yeah. So not only the bigger contracts, but the more demanding ownership. And demanding, like, in a sense, like, that might not even be the right word, but, like, imagine you're a fan of a team, like a huge fan, lifelong fan, and then you just so happen to be rich enough to be able to buy that team. and you just spent a shit ton of your own money out of your own pocket to like make that team better. Like, it's not a chill work environment for a coach, you know?
Yeah.
Even if the ownership isn't like, wow, necessarily super demanding, it's not like a very chill kind of work environment.
Plus, like, the league, sports in general is very like impatient, very hot seat. Like, oh, you have 1 year to figure this out. You have less than that. Like, if you don't immediately have success, and Brazilian soccer even more so, because people live for this. So they're like,
Exactly.
If you're not doing well, I don't feel good about myself as a person.
Yeah, this is my whole identity, bro.
Yeah.
And it's exactly that, right? And now imagine that being the owner, right? The owner of the team is putting that pressure on you. I'm going to try to share this this screen with you here.
Okay. Yeah, I see it.
You see it?
Yeah.
Just so you can get a context of the video. But what I'm saying is, like, even if the guy wasn't super demanding, look at the toxic work environment that was created from this.
Não, rapaz, eu cheguei pro técnico, falei com ele.
This is an audio leaked, sent by the owner of the club. This guy, Pedrinho, sent by the owner of the club. We don't know to who, but it was a leaked audio. Listen to.
So the guy on the right is the owner, and the guy on the left is the coach.
The coach that got fired. Yeah.
Okay.
So listen to the audio, and we'll discuss it later. But I'll put the subtitles after.
Não, rapaz, eu cheguei pro técnico, falei com ele assim, ó, você escala o jogador que contratou, você pode arrumar na sua mala aí que não passa desse jogo não. Entendeu? Falei com.
He literally told the dude, like, you either play the players that I've signed, like the new guys,
or pack your bags.
pack your bags. Like, what? Like, that's what I'm saying. Even if he's not like, whoa, the most demanding dude, look at the like negative, toxic, heavy work environment that he created, right? Like, the audio goes on, and he goes on to say, like, I wouldn't have signed them if we didn't need them. Like, you better freaking play them. And he tells the play, like, it comes off very braggadocious. Like, I'm bragging to my friends, look, I have power over this team that I just.
Right.
Whether or not he actually said that to the coach is a different story. It's been debated. They said, like, oh, no, he was just sending an audio to a friend. Like, you know how it is.
He didn't send this to the coach.
He sent it to the coach. No, he's sending to a friend saying, hey, I went there and I like put my dick on the table, basically, and told him he better play those players, right? Now think about it, though. Whether or not he said that to the coach, that's out in the media now. People heard it. People know it. People are aware.
The coach and the players heard it.
Exactly. You got it.
Yeah.
And you nailed my next thing that I was going to say. Brazilian football is not exactly patient. It's
Yeah.
Anyway, so they fired that guy, Fernando Seabra. He immediately gets hired by the Red Bull team, Red Bull Bragantino, which goes to show you, like, there's potential.
He was worth it, yeah.
Right? But they fire him. They bring in a new coach called Fernando Diniz. Now, Fernando Diniz, just the year prior, had won the Libertadores with Fluminense. And this was with like a month remaining in the season. With the former coach Seabra, they were as high as 5th in the championship, well within the qualification zone for the Libertadores. Like,
I remember seeing them and being like I saw some games and I was like, they're not playing too well. But then seeing them in the standings and being like, wow, actually, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. They had a run where I think they went like 7 games undefeated. They had a game against Botafogo, who was like one of the title contenders, who eventually won the title. And they, like, away, I don't know if it was at home or not, but they destroyed Botafogo. It was like 3-0. It was like it was a statement game for Cruzeiro, and everybody kind of thought, okay, from there, like, Cruzeiro has awoken, you know? Everything's going to gel. Now they're bringing in these new players. Like, wow, it's going to get so much better, right? And they were as high as 5th, like I said. And, after they fired Seabra and they brought in Diniz for a month or month and a half, like, really not enough time for a team or a coach to impact the team, I don't think, right? But whatever. Eventually they finished 9th, and that was just 1 spot shy of an unusually massive Libertadores qualifying zone. Remember I told you it's 4 that get right into the group stage plus 2 that get to like that,
qualify.
Exactly. So it's usually would be 6, but because the Libertadores reigning champion and Copa do Brasil champion and I think it was Libertadores and Copa do Brasil, and the last year's champion gets like an automatic berth. Like 3 automatic berths were ahead of Cruzeiro, so like it expanded 6 to 8 rather. It was just 2 positions, so expanded a 6-team zone to an 8-team zone. Even then, Cruzeiro was just
9,
1 position shy of that, right? So. They also made the finals of the South American Championship, the Sul-Americana, which is, let's say, the second division Libertadores. It's a continental championship. It's important.
like the Europa.
Like the Europa League, exactly. So they made the semifinals, eventually reached the finals with Diniz at the helm. But like I said, who knows if the coach actually has enough time to make an impact on the team. Like, I'm not going to say, it's because of Diniz that they made it to the finals.
Right.
I'm not going to say he didn't do anything, whatever. That's a fact. He was the coach when they made the finals. They lost the finals, though, in a pretty inconsistent and downright disappointing display. On paper, they were the better team. They are better paid. They're more investment. They played against a team called Lanús, which is, I don't know, not even like one of the top 5 teams in Argentina, like strength-wise. So, Cruzeiro had everything to win, but they didn't show it. They didn't play like that, in the game. And really it was kind of a disappointing game where it was never really in doubt. Like, Cruzeiro was down 2-0, and then they scored 1, and then when you think, like, they're trying to mount a comeback, the other team scores, 3-1, and, it was never in question. Like, it
was not a Cruzeiro story. It was a underdog story for that other team. We were just in there somehow. Yeah.
So, the season ended with a bitter taste. Like, fans are willing to, I think, forgive a losing the finals, or forgive a 9th place finish in the championship in the Brasileirão. Being that you've won a continental championship, it's like, okay, cool,
right.
We're gonna get to Libertadores anyways because of that. Blah blah blah. It's fine. We're good. That didn't happen. Not only did they not make Libertadores, they also did not win that championship. So, look at that beautiful goal. Dang. So, bittersweet taste for the fans. I mean, more so bitter than sweet, if anything.
Right.
The sweet comes from the part of knowing that, like, well, we know this dude is going to invest some money in the team, and the team's going to get better. So,
There's hope.
There's hope. And then on New Year's Day, Cruzeiro announced the signing of Flamengo icon Gabriel Barbosa, known as Gabigol. Gabigol had started as Santos, got sold to Internazionale de Milano, the Italian team, and he became somewhat of a Flamengo icon. He helped them win a Libertadores, helped them win multiple championships. He was a key piece. Even in this Libertadores win, which we're seeing like the videos of right now, he scored 2 goals to, seal their win, right?
And Flamengo is like the biggest fan base in the country, so it's like that's a big deal. Like, he's the hero in the country.
That's what I was going to say. The move rocked the whole country. Like, not just the Cruzeiro fans, not just the Flamengo fans, the whole league, the whole country. Gabigol had won multiple Player of the Year titles on top of all these trophies during his time at Flamengo. Like, he was for sure a fan favorite and considered a club legend by some. He, to me, is the kind of player, like, we call, there's a kind of player where, like, they don't show up in big games. Is a big player, but for whatever reason in a big game kind of disappears. Think like DeMar DeRozan, no hate to do
right,
but like,
or like Paul George or something.
We call that sort of player a pipoquero, like a popcorn player or popular player. Gabigol is what I would consider the opposite of that. Like, he could be playing so shit the whole season, but in the final, like, you just somehow know he's going to pull goals, like, out of his ass.
He's got that clutch gene.
He's got the clutch gene. And the same thing happened, for example, the whole previous season, the season before, he and Flamengo had been discussing a contract extension, back and forth. There was, like, back and forth in the media. There was contention, but at the end of the day, they couldn't reach an agreement, or at the end of the year. And after Flamengo's Copa do Brasil win over Atlético Mineiro, where Gabigol scored 2 of the first leg goals in Flamengo's 4-1 aggregate win.
Wow.
He announced, like as he's leaving the field and being interviewed by TV, he's like, yeah, this was my last game here. Like, next year I'm not going to be here. Like,
that's crazy. Holy, that's so crazy.
so talk about a mic drop, right? Like, literally, I won you guys this championship. Okay, bye. Next year, I'm winning some other.
Ungrateful, like.
More or less. He showed gratitude to
not him. Like he's saying, like you guys. Yeah, exactly. The team is ungrateful.
He definitely portrayed that.
You're welcome.
So like for a whole month, he was still like playing with Flamengo, but like they knew he wasn't going to play next year, so they kind of like had him training separately. They like he didn't dress for the games. Like they just had him on the side. So. Imagine, like, there was a month of speculation. Where's this guy going to go? What's his next, like, thing? And so imagine everyone's surprise when Cruzeiro announces him. Cruzeiro, which is a team, like, that just a couple years ago, or a year prior, no, I guess 2 years prior, was in the second division.
Yeah, they went bankrupt, and then they got relegated to the second division.
Exactly.
For years, too, right? They weren't just there for a little bit.
They got relegated once, but they spent 3 years there, and they had a debt of over $1 billion reais.
Jeez.
And to be able to sign like one of the most relevant players in the league, one of the top kind of players, even if he didn't have like the best season previously, but he still is one of the most relevant players in the league.
Yeah.
That's a motherfucking statement, bro. That's a team saying, yeah, we're here, And Cruzeiro didn't just stop at Gabigol. They also signed Dudu, who was like who became a Palmeiras legend. Palmeiras, as you know, is another one of the top, kind of like the richest teams. Dudu, again, he's on the decline of his career, but it's a statement move to be able to say, yo, we signed this very relevant player. It's like, I don't know, think about it like signing Paul George, let's say, or a
right.
Like, this guy's a star, clearly. He's on the downside of his career, but still a difference maker,
Yeah.
So they signed that. And funny, Dudu was an academy player. So Dudu started in Cruzeiro's academy.
Nice.
Way back when, and now it's kind of like a homecoming of sorts for him.
Because they don't have a draft, so it's just like you find like 12-year-olds and you just train them up.
More or less.
Yeah, kind of like an F1.
Kind of, yeah. You're the one to I guess make those comparisons. But yeah, because there's no draft, then each team has their own like academy/farm system, and the players do start pretty young. I think even under 8s they have.
Really?
There's no contract, right? Like, so if an under 8 wants to go to another team in under 9, you can, but the teams start that early.
It's kind of like our house league, like rep leagues here.
Exactly. Yeah.
But they have their own teams, like if TFC or like the other ones, LA Galaxy.
Yeah, like it would be as if TFC started like a rep team for 8-year-olds, 7-year-olds.
Cool. Yeah.
They can't do that in MLS, but you're absolutely on. So they didn't just stop at Dudu and Gabigol. They also signed Bolassi, which is like a gringo guy that had showed a lot of heart the season before. He was playing at Criciúma. He's like a British guy, spent a lot of years in the Premier League. He's also on the downswing of his career, but also a difference maker. Also,
like a veteran,
Also has that clutch gene where it's like, he might not be playing well, but that at any given moment he could step up and make it happen,
Nice.
They signed Eduardo, who's a midfielder from the current champions, Botafogo. He's a veteran. He could slot into multiple positions. He's a really good player, smart player. He's just kind of older and a little bit more fragile than you'd hope. But, still a good player, still a good bench piece, especially to back up Matheus Pereira, which is kind of like their cerebral midfielder. And the cherry kind of on the cake was Fabrício Bruno, who was another academy product, started his career in Cruzeiro. When Cruzeiro went bankrupt and kind of couldn't afford to pay player salaries, he was one of the players who sued the club to earn his free agency. So he kind of left on a more or less sour note.
Right.
But now he comes home to his childhood club. He was at Flamengo previously. He had been one of their main pieces. Also helped, also kind of instrumental in shoring up that back line. He's a really solid defender and was playing in the Seleção for a time.
Oh, nice. The national team.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So it sucks because, as a fan, you're like, oh, but this guy disrespected our franchise. But then you got to remember, this is a business, and, he was getting screwed out of his paychecks.
Yes.
You can't hate that. And he's probably happy to be back. Oh, now you got money. Now you're actually paying people.
That's such a good point. It's such a great point you brought up, because as much as us being fans of the institution, we are hurt that a player would like take that stance against the institution, right?
Yeah.
But factually thinking about it, like from a work, like a labor perspective, it's not the institution. It's the people who are currently managing the institution who are not making good choices.
Yeah.
Those are the people who are not honoring the contract that they signed with you. So I get that. Maturity has kind of helped me see, like, yeah, he didn't disrespect the institution. He sought out his rights, which he legally had the right to do, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think is all about right, and I think that's kind of all that's the best way a player can kind of come back from that, is to say, like, I'm back. I've always been a fan. I got to get mine. I got to guarantee mine for my family, but I'm happy to be here again. Like, this is the place I want to make history. Like,
yeah, we always get mad at like players, but you never get mad at like the team for like doing something shitty like that.
Shady
and also you kind of sometimes you got to give the flowers to your team. Like sometimes teams will, like, for example, the Bears, like they traded some players and didn't get the most that they could get back, but they're like, here's a good situation for you to go to, like just some respect.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
Yeah.
And it's the opposite of what you're saying, where it's like the Bears will trade him to a good situation because usually goodwill, but also, hey, that agent has other players,
right?
And so that's what happened in Cruzeiro. One agent who was owed a lot of money, which is on some shadiness. Like Cruzeiro was signing deals where like they're paying agent fees like in the tens of millions just for brokering the deal. But it's like, what do you need a broker? Like, there's two teams that are kind of already discussing. Like, you're the player's agent. Like, yeah, like you're not it's some shadiness goes on.
You're telling me there's corruption in Brazil?
In Brazilian soccer? There's
what?
There's corruption in soccer in general, but yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so what happened was, when this guy was owed his tens of millions over multiple contracts, he was the first to take his players out of Cruzeiro. He was the first to say, oh, you know what? You're not being paid for three months. That's the legal limit to where you can, get out of your contract. So some snake moves. We'll get into that a little deeper because some even heavier snake moves happen because of this guy. But anyways, back to the season preview.
Yeah.
They signed I think they made 9 transfers. So 9 plus 7, overall 16 new players. So
whoa.
Coming into the season, the expectations, as you can understand, were higher than Mike Posner in Ibiza. With Denise at the helm, the idea is like, here's the team. Like, the team is going to play some beautiful, like, tactically elevated football, Mm-hmm. While there was that optimism, there's also a lingering doubt. He'd basically been fired publicly last season after like a bad run of games. And like a post-match thing, one of the reporters was like, so we just heard you got fired. Like, what do you have to say? And he was like, wait, what? Like, I got fired? Like, instead of just laying down and taking it, like most coaches would be like, you know what? Like, it sucks. I did my best, but, their choice. They could do whatever they want. He did a move that I call, super badass, right? But
nice.
When the reporter asked him, he was like, what do you mean? I was with the professionals of this team all day, conversing, we're strategizing, we're trying to find ways to make the team better, and I haven't heard anything. They haven't informed me of such a thing. Like, how can that be? Like, I know they're great professionals, and they wouldn't do something like that, like in the press. Like, they wouldn't say one thing
without saying it to me.
Yeah, so he basically like laid it on them. Like, yes, are you guys being fucking douchebags or unprofessional douchebags? And Cruzeiro actually walked it back and kept him. Like, they saved face, but they literally like canceled the firing of him, and we're like, no, never mind, buddy. Like,
it was Cruzeiro that fired him.
Technically, yes, right? Like, or we don't know. Cruzeiro's like, no, we didn't fire.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
But it screams as if like the management got pissed and then went to the press, was like, yeah, we're gonna fire this guy. Like, leaked it to the press first, kind of like, oh, you want the press to do your dirty work for you, kind of thing. Right? Like, but the dude showed like he has balls, like what we would call him, but in Brazil, like malandragem. Like, I'm paraphrasing what he said. Like, I'm not quoting exactly,
sure,
but the vibe I got from that interview is him being like, wait a minute, Like, no. These guys are professionals. There's no way they would be saying one thing to my face and then going behind my back and firing me to the media. Like, I know these are adults. Like, adults would talk like adults, you know?
Whoa.
I was like, damn.
That's badass.
Badass as fuck. And it also shows, like, yo, this guy wants to be here, you know? Mm-hmm. He could have just laid down and been like, yeah, got fired? All right, well, thank goodness. Now I'm going to keep collecting my paycheck and get to chill at home with my wife.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
and go get another job next season. Like,
exactly. And honestly, with Diniz, I really wanted it to work. Like, I think it made so much sense in theory, on paper. Like, he has these concepts, these tactics that are unique and different in the game today. Like, and with the right players and situations like he did show at Fluminense, he's shown that it can work wonders, right? Like, just last year, he had won the Libertadores, right? He was the coach of the Brazilian national team for a while. So, like, potential is there. The ideas, the tactics are there. But with, like, at Cruzeiro, it was basically like watching a puppy with zoomies. Like, digging up at the floor. Like, there's a lot going on in one specific area, but nothing being built towards. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the puppy's just running around, just making a lot of noise, and
there's no infrastructure, there's no plan, there's no strategy.
He's not digging a hole. He's not like He's not like achieving. He's not like getting any further. He's just staying in the same place. And Cruzeiro was like that. It was just like ugly to watch. Like, you know, like static football that just wasn't very pleasing, right? And I think it can be forgiven if you like play ugly football, or it can be forgiven if you lose games, but you're at least showing good football.
Right.
It wasn't. Like, it was ugly, you know? And teams figured out Diniz's tactics real quick. And Diniz is a kind of coach who's like stubborn. Like,
like traditional, like
this way or it's this way. Like, there's no other way.
Right.
He doesn't have like a plan B or plan C or plan D. It's like, my tactics are good. I know they'll work. We just need time to implement it for people to learn it. And Cruzeiro wasn't really showing that, like, the evolution.
Unlike the other guy who was adaptive and
exactly.
Like,
unlike any coach worth their weight, that would be
right.
Like, hey, this isn't working. Let's change it, you know?
Right.
And more than once, on top of that, he insisted on more than one occasion to the press that results didn't really matter because the team was evolving. Like, I get that as a preseason coach talk, but we watched the games, brother. Like, the team was not evolving. And at the end, like, of his tenure, he was kind of like being a little bit more like, yeah, you know what? That's inexcusable. I don't know what's happening. Blah, blah, blah. Anyways. So now Diniz is out. They brought in a new coach called Leonardo Jardim. Is born in Venezuela, but Portuguese, like, national. And he led Monaco, which is like a French team. Monaco is a Monegasque team, but they play in the French league, through their best stretch in recent history, where they won a league title. I believe they went to like the semifinals of the Champions League. And he coached, at that time, a young Kylian Mbappe.
Oh.
He wasn't the main player of Monaco, but he was like coming off the bench. It was during like his rise, right, before he went to PSG. So the hopes are high for Cruzeiro, but once again, like I said, Brazilian football is not exactly patient. And you know, I know that. And to make matters worse,